Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Chris and welcome back to our team reveals segment where we go through how we're shaping up in preseason as we make our way over to round one. Today I've got the $0 team. So first time I've actually hit a zero balance in the team. And it's possibly my favorite team so far. A few different things that I'll talk about throughout the video. But I do want to let you guys know, as part of what we're doing this season, and we did have a comment or an email today from one of our listeners, just basically asking where are the team vids that we normally do. So if you've been following us for a while, we usually do every single AFL team, anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes. I think we've even gone an hour before on each team. And this year we've just decided that's pretty much like it's a lot of overkill. And what we tend to find in our listenership is that we get most of our listeners basically between now and the start of round one. Now releasing, essentially probably like 10 to 12 hours of content over every individual team doesn't necessarily get the best feedback in terms of viewers. So what we're trying to do is narrow that down, narrow the scope of that. And focus on the relevant players of each team, and then and break it into defenders, forwards, midfielders, etc. We've developed a really comprehensive list, and we're going to go through that. So that's what we're going to do instead of our traditional series, and that is just really to break it down a little bit easier to consume for you guys, easier to find specific information, and you can just focus on just the relevant players for Supercoach in 2024, according to us, of course. Outside that, let's get started with this. I will talk a little bit about, to start with, how I'm structuring this team. It's it's combined. It's combined with guns and value, and a little bit of both. So there is the value selections, and there are some that I believe you just have to get their what we call fair value price. I'll start it off. I'm starting with Nick Dacos here at D1, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So if you've been following our podcast and my team reveals recently, you would notice that I actually don't generally start with Dacos. I just want to have a bit of a chat about him. I do definitely think there is a valid consideration to not starting him and to start someone else. And as long as you have a plan to get him by his buy, which is round 5, then there is a viability there. The reason why I'm going for him this season as opposed to my previous in this team as opposed to others is mainly to make. I do believe that there is a chance that you can get priced out. At the end of the day, I think Dacos is probably D1 for the season. And at his average of 116, he's probably unders. I do see him as someone who could potentially be a M1 essentially. An average 125 plus for the season. So I think there is some value there. And personally at 650k, would I be unhappy during the season of trading him in at 650k? Probably not. I think that's probably what his value is at the lower end. And he could be a guy that is 700k during the season and just blows your way. For that reason, again, if you get him by round 5, then totally awesome. The guy that I had in here instead of this in other teams that I've been playing around with lately is Short, Jaden Short. So Jaden Short's at 550k, I believe. Yep, 551, 200. And he is someone who I think is reverting back to that kick-out distributor role out of half-back this season under the new coach. No more of those midfield stints. And if that's the case, then I see him with a scope of going 105 to 110 or even higher than that. Now, if he comes out of the gate early, he could make 50k by round 5. Dacos could drop 50k by round 5, and bang, you've got a straight swap over. The thing with that is, if he's averaging 105 to 110, are you really wanting to trade him out at that point? He's probably going to be a top 6 defender, and it may not be worth it. So, a couple of considerations. I have definitely thought about it, but that's my justification at the moment for the Dacos pick at D1. Now, here is where it gets into the fair value, guys. So, Sicily, I've gone through him. He's basically averaged 114 for 2 seasons flat, and 3 seasons if you take out his injury-affected games of the previous season. So, guy fair value, can he go higher? Potentially. He's just got a huge high ceiling. Definitely he can drop cash at times, and we've seen him be available just under 600k, but I think 630, you're getting what you're paying for him, which is more than I can say for a lot of other players where I think that maybe even sliding or going up. His role doesn't seem to be getting any worse. It's still going to be, he's going to take kickouts, he's going to be that intercepting guy. He's going to be released up the ground to take marks. If he's not taking the kick out, he's the designated receiver from a kick out, which means mark long kick down the line. Like he's just a points generator. So Sicily's one that I'm definitely having. The other one that I haven't had until now is Tom Stewart. So again, there is obviously the conjecture: is there a midfield move on the cards? I just don't think that that's true. We're watching preseason. Maybe they flirt with it, but at the end of the day, Tom Stewart last year was actually he had an adjusted average or a true average of 119. So that puts him at actually D1 for the last season, which gives him actually a 6 point value at his price. Now, how to do that? He got knocked down in round 1 on 18, then mixed the next week, and then played the rest of the games and averaged quite considerably from there on in. So. 119. So I actually think he might even be a value selection. Look, the cons against the pick, he's obviously over 30. I actually feel like this is a pro. Geelong aren't getting any better in my opinion, especially not this year. And so there's going to be more ball going down back, which means more opportunities for kickouts, more opportunities for intercept possessions, more opportunities for Tom Stewart to show who Tom Stewart is. And I think that could mean a lot in terms of Supercoach points. And it's the first time I've gone to this deep in defense. And I think last year was definitive in terms of there is a clear top 6 to 8 guys in defense. And I don't really see anyone jumping really too far into that. In terms of a value selection, like guys like Ridley and things like that, like I just don't see it. I think that these 3 are pretty well guaranteed top 6 selections. And very rarely do they drop poor scores where you can say pick them up cheap enough to make it worth your while not having them at this point of the season. So I really have gotten to the point here where I think that these 3 guys are going to be the mainstays there. And of course, Hayden Young, just due to the fact that he's got that midfield switch up and he averaged, I think, 107 in that role. Look, that's a lock at his price. And he hasn't moved out of my backline. Now, moving on, obviously, we go down to Zach Williams in this position. He's still going to be high considered. One guy that could pop into one of these guys, and I might drop by round 1, is Connor Buderick. And I did float him on an earlier podcast. Basically, if he gets the Jaden Short role, the distributor role out of halfback with kick-ins, etc., we do get to see that in round 0. So I'm not writing him off at all. And at 300k, he's probably the only true mid-pricer that I'm really looking at. I'm also looking at, obviously, Heath Chapman at 250. Both of those guys could go well, but I need to see more before I put them in my side. And then, obviously, rookies from here. So Gibcus comes in here at D6, which I think is good to have a bona fide known scorer at that position. And then, of course, Marty Hall. Again, if he gets the role, we know he can score. That's not an issue. It's just about if he's the best 22 and if he gets the role. And I still have Caulfield here as the last one. This could be Toby Pink. It could be Zach Reed. There's quite a few that could fit into this other D8 position. But Caulfield's got the runs on the board. He's known to average 75 before. If you can do that as a D8, that's just absolutely brilliant. The only one that I'm else considering, there's 2, I should say, Curtin. Now, I may have him say mid-bench or something like that, but depends on, he's obviously had an interrupted preseason, so it depends on what he's able to show us in the preseason before I select him. And the other one is Billy Wilson, who is a DPP player, 117k for the Blues. I'll bring him up now. So apparently has been killing it so far in the preseason. The problem with this sort of position is Zach Williams comes back into that back line. Like, where's his actual spot? And I'm not really sure that there is one at the moment, but he's actually owned by 7%. Now, maybe that's convenience just because there are no DPPs at the moment for Supercoach outside of him and Curtin that you would say are viable opportunities. So if you wanted to say start Nick Dacos in the midfield and then be able to switch him back, right now you can't, which is just really annoying. Now, you will obviously have that ability at some point with likely with Hayden Young, Maybe Zach Williams plays enough on a wing that you get him. Maybe say Chapman, for example, if he's playing a lot of wing, which is mooted, you could use him as well. But yeah, at this stage, Billy Wilson is an opportunity. So just another one to watch in the pre-season. Now, I've floated a massive different types of midfield over the last week and a half, and like there's so many names have come in. The ones that haven't moved is Zach Butters. At the end of the day, I hasn't moved out of my team. Don't think he's going to move out of my team. New addition to this is Luke Davies-Uniacke. Now, for those who follow my team, you'll know that I am pretty much well against Luke Davies-Uniacke. But with the 40 trades, you can afford to be a little bit more risky. And he does have M1 potential, which means that he's a value pick, which is also what I think about Zach Butters at the end of the day. Both of those guys have potential to really hit the ground running and be an M1 option. But obviously the other thing is LDU has a late buy. He's only a single buy player. Same with Zach Butters. Both of these guys are single buy opportunities. Here's where the only guy that I've got is a double buy in my line in midfield, and I've gone with Errol Goulden now. I had a look, guys. Honestly, I'm going to bring it up. Okay? I had a look at Errol, and I was like, oh, look, where's his upside? Where is his upside? His role's not amazing. He still plays a lot of wing. I know he accumulates the ball. He's a laser foot. They look to try and get the ball in his hands, and I get that. But his role's not amazing because he probably only hits 50% CBAs at the best, especially with their new acquisitions in Taylor Adams and James Jordan. When Mills comes back as well, so who knows? But he is the Swans' motor moving forward, in my opinion. And look at these last scores from his upcoming opponents: 156, 152, 143. Those were last year against his first three opponents. And his one after that is West Coast, I believe. So before his bye, and his last score last year was 164. So that's an average, look off the top of my head, that would be something like a 150 average over those first 4 rounds before his bye. So it could get to the point where, okay, let's say you're like, I'll just see how he goes in the first few rounds and then might have to get him in after his bye. He could blow well past 700K in those rounds and you're cooked. I don't want to take that chance. And since I saw that, I am 100% on the Goulden train. Now, there is obviously the other thought that because of his role, he has a propensity to drop scores, and I get that. So Fremantle, for example, at Optus, he only dropped to 66, dropped to 62 at St Kilda. This North game, only 96, another 47 at Geelong. So he can drop poor scores that obviously impact his price considerably. And that is one of the reasons why you shouldn't start him. I'm more optimistic than that. And if you have a look at the back end of his year, from after that Freo game, 152, 120, 90, 109, 138, like he really did dominate the back end of the year. Is he a guy that can go 120 plus? I believe that he potentially could be. The only other thing as well is that you'd likely think that Goulden gets a little bit more attention. Are they going to give him free reign to just do those 1, 2, 3 combinations from the back line to the forward line as freely as he has in the last couple of years? Is he the first name on the board when oppositions are doing their scouting analysis now? All of that is in consideration, but I like the pick, and he's the guy for me at the moment. Now, this guy is a bit maligned. Look, I think for the community, it's a little bit all over the place. Some people love Jack Steele. Some people hate him. At 529, he's an absolute value if he regains what we know he can do, which for 2 seasons straight was 120 average. Can he do that? Maybe, maybe not. Even if he's only a 110 average, at his price, that is a steal, pardon the pun. And it puts him in the realm of top 10. I think the top 16 or something like that finished at 109. So he's going to be around the mark in top 10. And so for me, at that price, and here's the other thing. At that price, I don't believe there is any other player in the game that can offer the same value outside of maybe Brodie Grundy. And that's a thing for me. Other things to consider, he has the back buy, of course, which is an amazing buy. He's got the round 15 buy. It's the best buy to have from a premium outside of the round, I think it's 13 with Port and Freo. He's the best. That buy is the best option. So I'm only going 5 deep in mids, and I'm running with Matt Crouch at this point for 90k. Now, this could turn into a couple of other players. This is a value selection with a potential of being top 10, but realistically, I'm more looking at Matt Crouch as someone who can get me to a Bont. So make me 50, 60k, Bont comes down 50, 60k, and then I only have to, bridge the gap by, say, 100k, which is, a single rookie down, fairly early in the piece. So it may be that Matt Crouch ends up being a stepping stone. It could mean that he's a keeper. And I really won't know that until the season really gets underway. But someone there, the other two guys currently vying for that position is, in terms of cash flow, someone I really want to look at in the preseason is Cam Guthrie. Paddy Dangerfield came out and said he was the best performing player coming back from the break out of everyone. And he's fully fit, he's ready to go, ready to motor. If he is a mainstay centre bounce player, like he has been before when he averaged, I think... Let's bring up Guthrie, actually, before we move on. I think he averaged, I want to say 107 or 110 at some point. Now, I know, again, he's just hit past 30, but there really isn't many others in the Geelong midfield that you would say is a reliable output. Where's his years? Previous years? Never know. Career stats, here we go. Okay, no, I want Supercoach stats. There we go. All right, here we go. So, 2021, he actually averaged 113. So, the COVID year was 103. And then, was 2021 the COVID year? I'm not too sure. But yeah, so obviously he's got the potential for, say, let's call it 105 to 110. That's where his potential lies as a player. And at 420k, it's pretty hard to pass up if he has a really good preseason. But it's one to monitor. And the other one is Ollie Wines. Now, again, I had Ollie Wines last year. His role was shit. The problem is the glut of guys they've got running through that midfield. So you've got Butters, you've got Rosie, you've got Wines, you've got Drew, you've got JHF. All of those guys outside of, I think Wines had the third most CBAs there already, and it was teetering on 50%. And Drew and JHF were about 50% too. Like, who gets the bump? Who doesn't? Is Connor Rosie the one that steps out, being the captain, to do the captain thing? I don't think it's Zach Butters. I think he's too dynamic in there. He offers too much. Look, to be honest, Rosie probably shouldn't be moved out of there either. So maybe it's Drew. Maybe he goes to a more tagging role. Maybe he's more of a wing. We know that he's played a bit of wing roles. Maybe it's JHF. They pay him a little bit more forward as that pinch hitter. I'm not too sure, but definitely Ollie Wines is in consideration at this pick, just depending on what goes on in pre-season. From there, we get into the rookies. McKercher, obviously, has been lighting it up. He will offer a mid-defender swing at some point as well. Again, Riley Sanders is a guy that has been killing the preseason so far. I think this is one that I really want in my starting team, and that's Matt Roberts. So this is going to be dependent. We do get a look at Roberts in round 0, so that's a very important note. But with a mooted switch back to halfback with, I think it's Braden Campbell. Braden Campbell has been mooted to go forward to half forward. We're allowing him to play more of a halfback role, and he'll obviously split his time between there and wing. Very important. Now, is he best 22? That's the question. Does he fit into their plans moving forward? They kind of forced him into the team last year. He might be, one injury away from best 22 cemented. I do worry that he might be a sub, because what we saw last year, I think I got hit with this. 2 great scores, bang, round 3, everyone traded him in, sub score. Not good. So there's an opportunity there, but also at his price, he's got the ability to score really well. Is it going to be good enough? Don't know. But at this stage, at the moment, I want him on field. I think he's one that could, he could be a rookie that goes 80 on an average, like generally. Generally? No. I don't know. Outside of that, so the other rookies really haven't changed much. So Jeremy Sharp still comes in here at M9. Jai Clark, obviously, he comes in at M10. And a bit of a bolter, Clay Hall from West Coast, coming in with a Thunder. Again, might be, say, 1 injury away from being best 22, but I mean, it's West Coast. They're going to have 4 more before the season starts, so it doesn't matter. He's been tearing up the preseason at the moment. Been spotted a little bit in match sim as one of the best, but sometimes playing in the B team. And so it's just one to monitor. But yeah, Clay Hall's one that I want to fit there. Moving forward, the other thing is I could have a mid-forward switch here. McAuliffe, I want to say, has been from Richmond, has been turning heads. He might be one that gets a nod. So there are other people in this spot that I could obviously switch him out for. Moving on to the rucks, Gordon Grundy hasn't changed, isn't going to change. Like unless there's an injury, it's just that's facts. Too much value to just skip on that. And in this team, I also have Sweet. Now, obviously, if Sweet does not get that number one ruck role, he is not in this position. I will use, I think it's Colin Livingston as who is the West Coast 102K ruck forward as a loophole swing. But if Sweet does get the number one ruck role, and it's mooted at the moment. Like at the moment, yes, he is playing number one ruck in the team in Match Sim. The problem is Soldo is still injured at the moment and is not due to return to training until I think it's about now. He had a hand injury, which has obviously restricted him in terms of his tap work and his ability to play football, but he's been able to run. So his fitness shouldn't be in question. It's just about who is the better ruckman come round one. So something to monitor with Jordan Sweet. But at this stage, I do have him in. And look, you'd be absolutely stupid to not start him if he has that number one ruck role. All right, now moving forward. So the first one that has obviously gone, Jack Macrae. I can't start him right now, obviously with a soft tissue injury. Look, anything can happen between now and round one, and it's a long way away, and I get that. And Macrae might turn out in that as a key cog in that. He's also been floating around and matched him in different roles. Magneto added it again, really. But I've gone with Flanders here at F1. Again, another value pick and value selection, because if he does get a role, and by all reports, the role is stuck. He's been playing midfield and killing it. It doesn't have to be a CBA role, but what we saw with him last year is that he just at very least needs to be that half forward guy that comes up around the stoppage as the sort of fifth midfielder added to that group. That's what he needs to be able to score. But he's already a proven commodity and he's obviously very cheap. And in fact, I think it was again 107 that he averaged on the back end of last year, meaning that if he gets that role, he's effectively F1 anyway, based on last year's scores. So, yeah. And here's where it gets to Value Town. So, Nat Fyfe, come on down. Now, there are some considerations I want to go through before that. Baker is one that I'm highly interested in. He's practicing, basically switching between forward and midfield with Shai Bolton in Match Sim. And from Track Watchers the other day, he absolutely killed it. And he had actually more CBAs than Shai. How much CBAs is it? Well, I did some stats and reporting. There's only 5 games over the past few years that you can confidently say he was used as a midfielder in those games with a relatively high-ish CBA numbers. And those games average out to 53% CBA, so not a ton, but enough to make him a midfielder. And in those 5 games, he averaged 99. So there's a couple of 120 plus scores, I think 160 score, and then 2 around the 80s and 90s. Now, 99 would be good enough for Baker at his price to justify that average. It actually puts him around F1 again on last year's scores. So it's a value selection that I don't mind. Taylor Adams is also in with a chance there. I will watch him again. We get both of these guys, we get to see round 0. So with all 3 speculative premiums, Flanders, Baker, and Adams, we get to see it before we have to select in round 1. So I hazard a guess that if they have the right role and they've scored well, then they're going to be a big jump in numbers come round 1. But at this stage, it's Nat Fyfe, obviously touted to be returning to the midfield. How much midfield? Look, I think I'd be happy with 45, 50%. But I need to see something in the preseason. Does he fit in with their current setup? I think it's Sarong. It should be Sarong, Brayshaw, Fyfe as their main 3, with Johnson and Erasmus coming through. But who knows what Freo are going to do this year. They do need something to change, though. And look, if Fyfe's body can hold up, I'm not looking for him to be a keeper. I do think he can average 85 plus, don't get me wrong. I just don't think his body's got the ability to be able to play out the season. He never has, and I don't think it ever will. So just because, again, he's older, doesn't mean he's going to be a keeper for the season. So I'm looking at him as a stepping stone. James Harms comes in at the next spot here. So James Harms has been again switching between half forward and midfield. So they're very similar role to Flanders, but he also kicked 4 goals in match sim the other day. He could be, I see again 85 plus from him, depending on the role that he gets. Obviously there is one available there, but there's also Sanders to come into that team if they want to play him. So I'm not entirely sure or 100% on with what his role is at the moment. I need to see a lot of preseason, but at the moment, James Harms is in good enough form, had a good enough preseason, and I think to myself, like, why would you want to go to the Bulldogs if you have you're not best 22 at the Demons, but you're probably best 23. I think there was 5 sub games in his scores last year, and the only thing I can think of is that they've basically guaranteed him a role in the 22. What I do know is that the Dogs' bottom end of players absolutely sucks. Their bottom 4 to 6 is one of the worst in the league. Their top say 16 players are one of the best in the league. They really just have a really bad bottom 6. So Harms coming into that really improves that bottom end. And so maybe he's the 18th best player. Maybe he's the 20th best player. But I do think that Harms went there to play full-time AFL football. Not as a sub, as an actual best 18 player, essentially. From there, we go to Billings. Again, I do think that the same thing with Billings. I think that he's gone to a club that need something up forward. They need his foot skills and his footy IQ, which I think is brilliant. Billings has been a little bit inconsistent over his career, and his injuries have dogged him the whole time. What do I think he can average? Again, I think it might be in that realm of 85 plus that he could definitely hit. So, I mean, all of these 3 guys have a potential, and this is why I'm going down this route, is I would hate to select, say, a Baker or someone else, or maybe a Caleb Daniel or a Dusty or a Shai Bolton, and on any given day, Fife outscores them, Harms outscores them, Billings outscores them, makes cash as well, and then you're left holding the bag where you spent 250 grand extra where you didn't need to. I think that the forward line is the place to spend on the value guys. So yeah, I've gone with that. On to the next one, Harley Reid, obviously a lock. You won't get out of that unless he's injured. And then the last one here is a new one, Alex Sexton. So Alex Sexton has been trialled at half back and apparently has been killing it. And look, what we know about Alex Sexton is that he's a good player when he can find the pill, but I think as that lead up forward, he just was never really, I know he's kicked 6 goals in a game, but he's never really shone in that role. And at halfback, he can use his foot skills. He's actually a very good kick. The problem is he doesn't have a defensive bone in his body, and I think that that's one of the things that lack. This could be a career lifeline for Alex Sexton, and I think he needs to view it that way because he's not in their best 22 if he's a forward. As a halfback, maybe he is because he's competing with the likes of Ben Long and Rory Atkins, who, on their good days are okay, and on their bad days they're terrible. So Alex Sexton at the moment looks to be a guy that can do that, and at 133k, let's see if he makes the team round 1. But again, we do get to see it in round 0, so not bad at all. Onto the bench, Finn McRae. Look, they are doing everything they can to hold on to Finn McRae, and they need to play him. But whether or not he's a sub or that 22nd, 23 in 1 week, out the next, that's a different question. One thing's cool though, they have actually been trialling him as a halfback as well, so that adds a little bit more flexibility to his game. They've also been trialling McCreary as a midfielder, and they've also even trialed Jamie Elliott at halfback. All of this could be all of a purpose to give Finn McRae more access to minutes on the ground in different positions and different roles. But I think it's probably Finn McRae to lose. They've also got Ed Allen there. They've also got a couple others. They've got Harry Dimitia that they obviously drafted. There are a few rookies that are demanding playing time this year for the Magpies. And Adams literally came out and said the reason why he left was because they said that was going to happen, that they need to prioritize bringing in other guys. And then the last one, obviously, is Sean Manor, who comes in at the end. So, look, obviously, who knows what happens with Sean Manor, but he's obviously a mature age recruit. We hope that he plays round 1, but we need to see more. And that rounds out our $0 team. So, not a bad little field. Now, obviously, I think it's 4, 5 premiums. If you can't crash the premium, which I do, 9, 10, 11, and Flanders is a premium again, which I do. So that's 12, 3 mid prices, 4 mid price. I suppose you count Williams there as well. 4 mid prices, and all of the rookies worth fielding at the moment. And really haven't missed anyone, really. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if there's someone that's a glaring omission that I've missed. Obviously, in order to do this and to get this sort of value on the team, you forgo the guys like Bont or Clary or Track. Guys are really expensive. Even Rory Laird at 650k. You have to get rid of someone like a McRae to be able to add the value into the team. But I really like how this is shaping up. This is probably my favourite team so far of the preseason, and it looks like the one that I'm most likely to start with. All right, guys, thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic evening or morning, depending on when you're listening to this, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.